Welcome to the Monster in My Head show, a podcast where we talk to real people about the real issues and insecurities a lot of us deal with, as well as discuss unique ways to overcome them. I am your host, Bree, and today I am talking to my wonderful, amazing friend, Fabian. Fabian is an incredible magician as well as a business owner, and honestly, probably one of the friendliest people I have ever met, which is why I have him on the show today. Hi, Fabian.
Hey, Bree, good to see you.
Well, Fabian, I wanted to have you on this show specifically on this episode because today we're going to be talking about making friends as an adult. So I know that this is something that a lot of people struggle with, especially people who maybe move to a new place or, you know, come from a college where they have a ton of friends and then they have to go and feel like, how do I even meet people? So one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on this episode is because that's something that I've seen you really excel at. So I wanted to kind of ask you a little bit about, you know, your background with that. Like when you were younger, I'd love to hear about, like, how were you when you were younger? Were you like always very energetic and very like personable, you know what I mean? Always personable, or is that something you kind of developed over time, would you say?
So from what my parents tell me, I was always a bit of a ham growing up when I was a kid. But I feel that's because I came from such a repressed first few years of schooling. I was in private school for a minute, and it was just not a good fit for me. I'd always end up sitting in the corner, being disciplined. And it's never that I was causing trouble. I just like to have fun. But as you may come to realize, if you like to have fun, trouble sometimes follows. So when I was, put in the corner, I maybe as a disciplinary action, it worked maybe the first handful of times up until I started asking questions, which the teachers just wouldn't tolerate. So when we transitioned over to public school, the public sector, I felt like I could be a little more me. So I was Santa Claus in the Christmas play. I was doing the talent show. I was just a little more me. But it wasn't until I kind of got to high school that, you start kind of settling into certain things that are going to follow you throughout the rest of your life, where I just kind of realized that I never really learned how to relax. So I just started relaxing a little more. But, my mom tells me ever since I was a kid, I was the type of kid that if you left alone in the corner for an hour, you could go off and do what you want. You'd come back and I'd still be in the same spot. Like I may have like an orange or a book or something in my hand, but I was pretty much happy with where I was. I was very self-sufficient in that sense.
Interesting. So then you kind of, you were self-sufficient. Then when you moved over to public school, then you kind of figured out who you were in kind of more of a social context since you felt like you fit in there more. Is that right?
As much as a 14, 15-year-old.
Right.
Yeah. Very, very
that makes sense. So then when did you start doing magic again? You started when you were young. So just to kind of give people a little bit of background with you. So Fabian is a magician. The way that we met is I remember coming into a hat shop in Austin. I think I had just moved there and I was with my dad and I saw this like really cool hat shop. And I'm not a hat girl, by the way. I don't ever wear hats, but I was like, this seems like a really cool store. So we went in and started like looking at hats. And then this dude just comes up to me and is like, you want to see a magic trick? And I was like, sure. But then it was actually fantastic. And then we've been friends ever since. So how did you start with magic? And then also, how did you kind of realize that having something like that was a great segue into being able to introduce yourself to people really easily?
Well, I mean, you and I both met at very frantic times in our lives. I mean, I feel like we were kind of on that journey of having it put together when in reality, we met in like 2017 and this is now 6-7 years later.
Holy shit.
We're still putting the fucking pieces together,
Yeah.
It is what it is. That's what life is, right? It's this constant cycle of like construction and deconstruction. But to answer your question, I started magic when I was young. My dad showed me a piece of magic and we had a local magic shop in town and he took me one Sunday and bought a few tricks. And the idea was once he realized that I was actually sticking with it, if I'd mastered it, we could go back and get another trick. So that was kind of the idea.
Hmm.
And then the talent shows followed after that. And then by the time I was in high school, freshman year, I was doing a lot of kids' birthday parties around town. As I got older, I started working for a lot of doctors and attorneys in the area. And by the time I was a freshman in college, I was flying all over the country doing these corporate events.
Hmm.
I was very depressed my freshman year of college because I would see all my friends partying it up at, spring break. And I didn't realize that I was, sleeping in a presidential suite overlooking the White House, being paid to perform for doctors. Right? So that was the
Yeah.
disconnect for me because it was always work for
Mm.
me. It was fun, but a very, very privileged scenario. And that's how I got started in magic. But I didn't really start seeing it as a social tool maybe until my 20s, my mid 20s. And
Hmm.
even then, it was something that I had to restrain a little bit. So the idea is, I'd kind of stopped taking it seriously when I was, 13, 14. But I was in gym class. I saw this guy doing card tricks for all the cute girls. And when I saw that, I was like, hey, move over. Like, like, I wish this was a joke, but it's pretty much the truth.
Oh no,
Um,
I could see that being true.
so that's what happened. And it kind of took me a minute to kind of realize that throughout that entire time, at least in high school, I was using it as a defense mechanism. So I didn't really have a
Mm.
lot of friends. I was popular, people knew me, but I didn't have a lot of friends. Uh,
Mm.
so I used it more as a vetting tool more than anything.
So, okay, I have I guess, a question for you, and I think we could probably relate on this point. As a professional performer, someone who is on stage quite often, who goes in front of a bunch of strangers, how do you think that's affected your view of people, of their approachability, of their general nature, and how does that
Mhm.
affect when you meet people socially, or your willingness to go up to people or talk to people, or does it affect that at all?
It does, and it's a multifaceted question. So I best we start, with the first tiers. Um, the moment we step on stage as professional anythings, and in this case performers, we are automatically put in a different limelight in front of other
Mm-hmm.
people, whether we
Mm-hmm.
like it or not. It's just the truth. We are up there for a reason, either A, because we simply have the audacity to be there, or
Mm-hmm.
in this case, because we have something that we would like to share, whether it be for self validation or whatnot, or for entertainment. So there are already biases that are being formed when we're on stage. And what I've found is the best way to approach those scenarios is to lead in earnest. Just
Mm-hmm.
lead with, honesty. It's the same way that I lead in certain interactions. If I do use magic as an entry point.
Yeah, it's interesting because I almost feel like social interactions can definitely mirror a performance, even though it's not. Like, I personally, when I first moved to California, I was young, I was like 13. I definitely felt like I had to put on a show of being like,
Mhm.
this is real, this is me, like fully singing like High School Musical, like, "Ah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna make so many friends," And then but I wasn't an experienced performer. And then when I actually started becoming an experienced performer, of being on stage, of having to read an audience and sitting in
Yeah.
front of everyone, everyone's attention is on you, and but you're not making it about you. I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned from being a performer, in regards to how that, translates over into making friends, is I'm like, this interaction is not about me. This is about our connection as
Mhm.
a performer and audience member. And this is not about you just observing me. This is about us like doing this together,
Mhm.
which is something that I think I've personally tried to kind of translate into my social interactions with people, being like, my goal is not just to talk at them and tell them all about myself, but it's where is that point where we connect? Like,
Yeah.
how do we find that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what has that been like? I mean, I guess when you kind of meet someone new, like, if you're not using the shield of magic, or if you're not using like the shield of being a performer in that moment, how do you usually find yourself kind of looking for that deeper connection when you like meet someone, if that makes sense?
It's interesting because dating, it
Mm-hmm.
can be at the same thing, the best metaphor for it, if the connection's not there, you're going to know. And I'm not
Mm-hmm.
talking about some deep, lustful, romantic, burning connection. I'm just talking about
Mm-hmm.
a genuine connection. Do we have the same interests? Do we have the same likes? Doesn't really matter. If there is a vibe there and you generally feel some sort of rapport with this person or comfort with this person, it translates into friendship as
Mm-hmm.
well. Either way, it's something that you have to go in and be able to recognize.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, I really do believe that we as people need some sort of connection.
That makes sense. And you know, it's funny because I think a lot of times people are really scared to meet new people because they're afraid of how people are going to react to them. You know, they're
Mm-hmm.
afraid to go up to the glass of the heart and be like, "Hi." You know, there's a statistic that I found that says a recent survey reveals that 45% of adults admit they find it hard to make new friends. In fact, the average adult hasn't made a new friend in the last 5 years. Also, 45% of those surveyed say they would go out of their way to make new friends if they knew how or had more opportunities to do so. So I find that really interesting that like half of adults, half of people really would love to meet other people. They would love to have new connections. They would love to form new friendships, but maybe they just have a hard time doing that. So this idea of like just going up to someone and, you know, if like recently, well, actually not super recently, like about a year ago, I was at a party and I saw this girl who's as tall as I am. I'm 5'11", and I was like, at that point, I was like kind of feeling, you know, I had a lot of friends and then I changed a lot as a person. I kind of walked away from religion. I kind of like really
Mm-hmm.
just developed as a person. So I kind of, you know, obviously friends kind of come and go when you change that drastically. And I was like, I would
Yeah.
like to make a new friend. And so I went up to her and we started talking. And I basically was just like, you're so tall. I love it. And then we started talking. And I've actually used that a couple times. Like I've kind of identified like there is a thing that I can connect with someone immediately just by looking at them. I can connect with them and we can connect on like a shared experience. And that
Yeah.
usually kind of breaks the ice and it makes it like less awkward.
I find that many people wouldn't mind a new friend or two. And it's not that they don't know how, at least in my experience, it's just that they're not presented with a field in which to do that.
Hmm.
The reason I joined a cycling gym was because I realized that I needed some sort of human interaction.
Mm-hmm.
And I ultimately did come away with friends from there.
I like that whole thing about like community. And I think that's actually really important. Something that I've recently done is I've been going to trivia every Tuesday at a local
Mhm.
bar with some of my friends. And I've like met a couple people there already. And because we have something that we're all doing together. It's something that we enjoy. It's like a fun game environment. It's also a place where people do go to like meet people and to
Oh,
like kind of like you said, like getting out, you know, because I think especially after the pandemic, obviously, it's like so many of us were stuck inside for so long. A lot of us forgot how to like talk to people. And
yeah.
so now that that's not really as much of a thing, you know, we're able to go out and not really worry about it. I think it's like identifying places where people will go who are open to meeting new people in a less pressurized setting. They're all
Yeah.
doing stuff together that you enjoy,
Yeah.
you know?
It's communal spaces are really the ones that open up for those interactions.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was cycling, I'd cycle every Sunday. That's how I would start my Sundays. And I remember after cycling, the grocery store was right around the corner, so I'd walk in, and there was one rider who would be there, and they were smelling flowers. And I said, I've got to ask, do you get flowers like every Sunday? Is this a thing, or is it just like a now thing? And they responded
Mm-hmm.
honestly, oh, well, where I'm from, we don't have flowers this time of the season because it gets so cold and whatnot. And so it's just genuine questions like that. If you lead with
Mm-hmm.
purity of intent, I've found that the ROI is somewhat tangible, in that
Mm-hmm.
sense. Which is weird because when you get into a construct, the social construct of dating, it changes, and
Mm-hmm.
we've had conversations about this before uh, when it comes to that, but that's a different story. But as far as actual interactions with people, it can be as great as, hey, you know what? I really like your shoes. And in
Mm-hmm.
my case, oh, thank you. I'd probably follow it. So like, take them off, give them to me. Which is,
Which I love that though, because you're opening with a genuine compliment, and then you're breaking the ice with humor, which
Yeah.
like can make people feel a lot more comfortable and being like, oh, like it's not like creepy guy like I love your shoes. Like it's it's like someone they can recognize you're coming up to them to have connection. And
Yes.
I think a lot of people really underestimate the power of asking questions and like asking
Hmm.
genuine questions. Like everyone just wants to talk about themselves. Like,
Oh,
everyone
yeah.
wants to like share about who they are and have someone who's interested. So even if someone were to have, let's say, a high level of social anxiety, even the idea of like being in a social setting and like going up to someone and just be like you said, like, hey, I love that shirt, where'd you get that? Like
Yeah.
that person most likely is not going to be like, ew, don't
Yeah.
talk. Like generally people are pretty nice, at least from
Yeah.
what I've seen. I think
Yes.
we kind of have an idea that the world is very evil, and many parts of it are, but like I think generally people are open to meeting new people, as
Well, we're pandemic babies, right? Like,
yeah.
in that sense, like we knew, we remember, we actually can feel in our bones just how much distance hurts.
Mm-hmm.
We can relate to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I still get giddy when I find that people want to talk to me.
Mm.
There's this great Mel Brooks joke of when he started working on the lot at Paramount, how he met Cary Grant,
Mm-hmm.
and he went to Cary Grant and had lunch with him. And then the next week, the phone rings and it's Cary Grant calling Mel Brooks. And we goes, oh, great. So they go out and they get lunch. And then the week after next, Cary Grant calls him to have lunch. Mel Brooks, oh, okay, why does he want to? Okay. The week after that, Cary Grant calls him again. And, he wants to have lunch. And Mel Brooks says, all right, I guess I'll go have lunch with Cary Grant. And the next week, Cary Grant calls and says, I'm not in. I'm not in. Cancel everything. I'm not in. I feel that's what social interactions were beforehand. Now, just the fact to
Mm.
actually be in a communal space with someone and share a laugh or just breathe the same air as they answer emails is enough.
Totally.
For me,
Totally.
that's still, the perfect. It's the same thing as the whether it be a date or a friend date. It's the errand outing, right? Hey, I need to go to HEB. You
Mm.
want to come with me? So yeah, or I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
Whole Foods. Do you need anything? It's that same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, I love that. I think you're totally right. I think that maybe before when we saw it as a nuisance, now we recognize how precious that is. And
Hmm.
also because we've missed it for so many years, because it like has, it was years that the pandemic was happening and made it so difficult to go see anybody. I know for myself, I've seen myself be a lot more intentional with my friends and be like
Oh,
reaching out. I will like reach out at least, once every other week at the minimum to like my close friends who are here that I can see, and I'm like, okay, let's go get coffee, let's go get dinner, let's go do this,
yeah.
and I've noticed that they do that to me as well, um which I think is another important point. Like, I have here that a report suggests that 36% of all Americans, including 61% of young adults and 51% of mothers with young children, feel serious loneliness. So I think it's not just about meeting new people, but it's about how do you maintain the friendships that you already have? What does that look like to like build into the friendships that you currently have to bring more depth to them to like help alleviate this loneliness? Because it's a killer. Like that's something that I've been hearing a lot. The loneliness epidemic is worse now than I think it's ever been.
Well, loneliness is a hell of a drug, and loneliness will
Mm,
make you do things that you otherwise wouldn't do, just like any other drug that you put in your body. It's interesting because as you get older, and you use the phrase, intent. You know,
mm-hmm,
intent is a big thing. You're a lot more intentional with how you spend your time, and more importantly, who you spend time with and who you invest time into, just
mm-hmm,
like anything. And as I've gotten older, it shifts. It all really shifts. It's very much if you don't use it, you lose it type of mentality in that
mm-hmm,
sense.
mm-hmm,
Um, I like with you, for an instance, if I see something that reminds me of you, I will send it to you, however mundane
mm-hmm,
it is. I sent you some piano things like last week or a week or two
mm-hmm.
ago. It's just a matter of just checking in and just saying, "Hey, I'm here. I thought of you. This is great." Which is
Mm-hmm.
what I think really every Instagram interaction is. Like when you get a
Yeah.
meme, every
Sending
time
memes.
someone,
Yep.
yeah, every time you get something, it's another way of saying, "Hey, I thought of you," which for me is like,
Mm-hmm.
like thank you.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I had a friend of mine. about a year ago was in a rough spot, and they asked me, what can I do to make sure that you are holding yourself accountable to be the best version
Mm,
of you? And it's really just approaching your friends with a level of honesty and vulnerability and
mm,
of just
mm-hmm,
visibility. Really, it's like, look, I understand this is where you're at. I may not know
mm-hmm,
exactly, but this is where I'm at. I'm here. Call,
mm-hmm,
text, whatnot. You don't have to do anything. Just a thumbs up every now and then, an emoji.
mm-hmm.
You're good to
Mm.
go. Um,
So hugely important. It's amazing that can save people's lives, to know
yeah,
that like someone is thinking about them.
yeah, absolutely. And at the end of the day, they for some reason hold you in some sort of regard that you may not be aware of, and it's
Mm-hmm.
really not your place to know.
Mm-hmm.
I've realized that if people want to keep you around, it's for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
On the flip side, I've also had friendships that have gone cold, uh, and recently too, for reasons that I will never know. Your responsibility as a friend is just to be there.
Yeah. That's really interesting that you say that. I actually had that happen a couple months ago. It was really interesting. I had met someone, we'd really hit it off. We went and got lunch, thought it was really fun. They came out and
Mhm.
saw one of my shows. I came to support them to one of their things. And then I reached out again to like get lunch, and I never heard from them again. Like never heard from them again. But they would like watch my stories and like,
Yeah,
kind of still do that. And it was very odd because I
because
was
they're
like,
awesome.
right. I mean, obviously. But it was interesting because I was kind of like, okay, so this is a person that I kind of felt like I connected with, but obviously they did not feel the same way, which is fine. And recognizing and realizing like that most likely doesn't have anything to do with me. If they had like
No.
a problem or if I like offended them in some way, it would be their responsibility to reach out to me and be like, hey, like this is, you
Yeah,
hurt me, whatever. But I think, you know, in relationships, learning where we need to take accountability and then also learning where we need to recognize that sometimes it's other people's things that we don't have to shoulder the responsibility for. Does that
yeah.
make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense, and it's a discipline. Like any
Mm.
other discipline, it has to be practiced, and that's the
Mm-hmm.
hardest part about it is practicing it and seeing it through, taking a step back, analyzing and recalibrating, saying, "How do I apply this next?"
Mm-hmm.
And it also comes with age too. As a person, I feel like I've really mellowed out.
I relate to the fact that I've calmed down a lot too. I used to just be so out there and just like so loud and just a lot, which we love. But for
I mean, I
for
certainly did. I mean, I certainly did. Who is
like,
this?
who is this bitch? She won't stop talking. But something that I definitely noticed that I actually did this a lot more in dating than I think in friends, but I saw myself doing it with friends as well, is trying to lessen my quirks and trying to lessen my idiosyncrasies to just kind of
Mhm.
be like, put on a little bit more of a front and be like, oh no, I do have my shit together and I'm very cool. And I think that
Yeah.
as I've gotten older, I'm like, fuck that. Like I'm a lot and I know it, but the friends that I have and the people that I date who stick around, they're
Yeah.
they're with me because of those things, not in spite of them. So like
Yeah.
this whole idea of like just like be yourself and like the right people will enjoy your company.
I think the most genuine form of affection is calling someone or just asking, "Hey, how are you doing?"
Mhm.
But not like, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" No, like I mean, like seriously,
Mhm.
like, how are you doing?
Mhm.
Like if you can phrase, I remember someone saying that to someone, and they just started crying.
Mm.
It's like that's all. I think we're all just one well or sloppily worded sentence away from dissolving like cotton candy, especially
Mm.
in this type of world that we're living in nowadays.
It's
So
so weird. I actually saw this Instagram video recently of this woman who has this handle on Instagram that's "Are you happy?" And she literally just went up to this random person and was like, "Hey, are you happy?" And this woman was like, "No, I'm not." and I'm really struggling right now. And I recently got out of a relationship and I like did all this different stuff. And like, I'm literally about to go drink right now and it's during the day. And it was like, she just needed somebody to ask her how she was
Yeah,
doing. She
yeah,
just needed somebody to ask. And even if it was a complete stranger, I've done that before. Like there's been times where I've like seen someone, I can't remember what it was. I remember seeing someone though and just being like, hey, are you okay? You know, like, and they were just like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm like, just know, like, you're cared for.
I
It's gonna
mean,
be okay.
some of the most mundane things too. Like I was in Dallas a few weeks ago, and I was making my way back, and I got some food, and the cash register, the manager looked at me, and they were like, "You look like you have a really nice smile," and it just like blew me away. And like I just
Mm.
started laughing, just because it was so
Mm.
sweet and sincere, and it just caught me off guard. And then the following day, I had some of my coworkers say, "Hey," like they called me after I said good morning. They called, "Hey, are you okay?" It's like, "Yeah." It's because you looked very angry, and we wanted to make sure you were okay. And I was like, "No, that's
Aw.
just my face." But thank you. Like, that's just I didn't have coffee this morning, so yeah.
I've tried to make it more of a point that when I go out, if I see someone who I like their outfit or I like their whatever, I will tell them. Like I remember seeing this woman, this like woman probably in her 70s, and she was like wearing this like hot pink dress. And I was just like, you look so beautiful today. And she's like, oh my God, thank you so much. And it felt so nice. Like even though the interaction didn't continue, it felt so nice just to be able to like say that to someone and like just give that
Genuinely
positive
mean
energy
it.
out. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Without necessarily expecting anything back. You know, it like feels nice to like give though.
It's just approaching with a level of levity and kindness and
Mm-hmm.
purity of intent. Um, and I think in being more comfortable with that, it's just really mellowed me out. I know we talked a while ago about dating. I'm at the point now where if there is nothing there, it's just like, all right, it's literally that. It's nothing to
Mm-hmm.
take personal anymore
Mm-mm.
because we know what we're about. I feel at a certain point now. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, if they're calling it quits, they obviously must know something about them that isn't a good fit here. And
Yeah,
at
I
that point,
think that's a huge thing to internalize. It's not rejection. It is lack of compatibility. It's
I,
like
you
if
know,
someone is like, I don't want to hang out, it's like, cool, that's because that's not anything to do with me, but like that's fine. Like it's just our
exactly.
connection is not there, you
Yeah.
know? What would be your tip for someone who might struggle with a little bit of social anxiety?
Mm.
Um, about their mindset when it comes to approaching or meeting new people? What would be something that they could think about themselves that could make them less anxious?
If it works out for you, great. If that interaction is received, perfect. If it isn't, it doesn't hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
It only works for you, never against you. And that
Mm.
social anxiety that you have to keep in mind that we've all had it. We're
Mm. Mm-hmm.
human beings. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there's this great Prince lyric from Little Red Corvette that I love, which is, and believe it or not, I started to worry. I wondered if I had enough class. Now,
Hmm.
for someone like Prince, the purple Yoda, to put that pen to paper and say that out loud, come on. If Prince doubted himself for like 2 seconds, you can doubt
Yeah.
yourself in 2 seconds. And ironically, it's a lyric I keep coming back to a lot.
That's very real though. I actually recently heard that back to the whole dating thing, but it's very much the same with friendships. A lot of people have dating anxiety. A lot of people are scared to approach somebody. A lot of people are scared to initiate whatever. So it's like if you can kind of go into any situation and be like, this person is most likely nervous, to
Yeah.
either talk or to interact. Like that takes off the pressure of having to be perfect in that interaction yourself.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And you know what? And it this is something that changed the game for me regarding friendships. The moment you experience something that is so jaw-droppingly easy, it changes everything. I had one conversation over a group dinner with someone, just a whatever conversation, and the next day we run into each other, and he comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, do you want to come over to my house and play ping pong?"
Oh, I love that.
And I was like, yes, yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds great. That was it. It was that easy.
I
And
love that.
it was, the same thing that, that happened recently. Hey, do you want to go get pizza? Like, I'm really hungry. Have you had lunch yet? Like, let's go get pizza. My treat. Friendship is non-committal, right? There are no
Mhm.
terms in that sense. There are no
Mhm.
terms. Um, and for me, in leading with earnesty and just being honest, it's given more rewards than I would have ever expected. And just like, I texted one of my friends today, "Hey, yo, this was a year ago today," and it was me like just giving him this bear hug, right?
Mhm.
It's just simple gestures like that. And at the end of the day, you know, Twain said it best: good books, good friends, and a clean conscience. This is the ideal life. And
Mhm.
the only thing I would add to that is and strong whiskey. That's really it.
Touche.
That's
Touche.
really it.
What wisdom to end the show with. Well, Fabian, thank you for chatting with me. This has been really a fun conversation. Everybody who's listening, I hope you enjoyed the show. Please like it, subscribe if you can on whatever platform you're listening, and share it with everyone who is wanting to make new friends. And yeah, we will see you next week on the show.